Welcome to part three. Do apologise about the delay. Hope you're well, Julian. Michaela Meyer is possibly next for Tasha Jonas. That's from the horse's mouth.
Yeah, I just don't think. Leave that, Kelsey. We've got noise in the background, folks. We've got people emptying dishwashers and stuff. We're on live here. This is big time, boys. This is big time. I've got a son now. Sorry, everybody. I'm interrupting the question.
Still got that tash.
Kelsey's still got his tash, but I've got my other lad, Joe, who's here, who's taken up MMA and he's loving it and he's there all the time. Says, why don't you do a bit of boxing, Dad? I'm not bothered about that. Can't really argue with that, can you? So there'll be a lot of people watching this, Joe, but yeah, boxing's dead, apparently.
Well, when your 15-year-old lad's telling you it's dead and is showing you statistics, there is a problem, isn't there?
He's always showing me these two watch. They've been both campaigning for months, haven't you, lads, for BT Sport. I want to watch. Can you get UFC, Dad? Can you go watch UFC? They get up, they watch the events. I'd never mention it to them. Don't encourage them. They get up, they watch the events. I don't watch it. And then they're watching the previews, the Ultimate Fighter program. Joe he's there every single night at the gym. Loves it. Gets on a bus to the gym. Joe don't get on a bus anywhere. And I thought, a son of mine would have gone down the amateur route or whatever. But, me and Kelsey watch a few of the fights. But it's a different dynamic, isn't it? It's a different demographic. But the tides are changing, Russell, aren't they? I know you asked me a question, sorry, but they really are. And I'm seeing it for myself now because Joe is 15. And, sorry, I'm on one again, but I asked him a while ago. Says, junior mates watch boxing because you do it, don't you? You want to know if the young people are watching boxing, don't you? And I'm not going to, base my statistics on the 15-year-old son, but he goes to school. He goes to a big comprehensive school, and he says people are always talking about the latest UFC fighters, the latest MMA guys. He says that's what they talk about. He's just got one mate called Reese, who watches a bit of boxing, follows boxing, and he likes his boxing. He goes, he's the only one of the whole group of them. There's a big gang of them. He's the only one in the whole gang who watches boxing. And the rest of them, Russell, watch MMA.
Yeah.
Worrying, mate. It's worrying.
It is.
You've got people like us who are hardcore, who get disillusioned and drift away from it. And you've got, this BKB and all these like bare knuckle organizations are growing. You got the UFC and Bellator and Cage Warriors and all this stuff's growing. If I look around now, there's MMA gyms popping up absolutely everywhere. There's one a mile down the road. My son goes to one in Ossett, and the boxing gyms are getting drowned out. They're asking government for funding now, aren't they? Because they're not full. So we can't keep up with the overheads. Eddie Hearn and Matchroom, they're doing great things. They're helping gyms out, but you're putting plasters on amputations. That's what you're doing. This sport, I'm not saying boxing's dead.
Got funding, aren't they now?
Yeah, exactly. And who knows if it's going to end up being at the Olympics or not. Boxing is, the big events are still big. The big nights are still big. But generally at grassroots to mid-level, like the Dennis Hobsons and the small hall promoters and the Steffi Bulls and that and Mark Bates, they're not putting as many shows on and they're not making it's massively struggling, mate. And
Mark's got 2 shows on it next couple of months, though, hasn't he?
Right, okay, I don't know. I sometimes go to those shows, they're good shows, but they are good shows. But what I'm saying is, you get what I'm saying, don't you? Is that he's got so much other competition now. And I always try and get to the bottom of it with Joe. I'm like, what is it you're not interested in? And do you know what he always turns around and says?
What?
The best fight, the best dad, all the time. And we've had moments of that in boxing the last 12 months. We've had some really good fights with Spencer and Crawford. And
we lose a shit, don't we, if we get a guy ranked 8 fighting a guy ranked 5, don't we?
Oh, we go.
It's pay-per-view. It's a British title.
Well, you think about it now. we're all going absolutely nuts over Warrington and Wood, which is a great fight. But
Washed up fighters, really, when all said and done with defeats.
well, one were 1-1 in his last two fights. Fight before Lee Wood got absolutely sparked out, and then the other kid were 1 win in 4, and we went absolutely nuts for it because it was a great fight. But these guys in the UFC, they're routinely fighting the best opposition out there, and then they fight again, and they fight again, and then they fight someone else. And it's
they have to have hard fights, don't they? Because when they come away from them fights, they're smashed to pieces, aren't they? The bodies and that, and they're
brutal.
So they might as well get smashed to pieces by main man and get paid, aren't they?
But they're contracted, aren't they? They're contracted. Yeah. It's like you will fight who you are told.
Yeah.
This is your plan. That's how much you're getting paid. There's no negotiation.
Well, what their contract, I've been told, is right, if it's a 5-fight deal, they'll say to you, right, you will fight these 5 fights over 20 months, one every 4 months, and you do fight every 4 months. So you will fight these 5 fights over 20 months. This is what you get paid, but you don't know who you're going to fight. But we will step you up if you keep winning. And I think that's it's a bit like what's the word for it? He's on a power trip, isn't he, that Dana White? He's in control, isn't he?
Yeah,
control. But they're getting paid, but they're not getting mega dough. But they do get paid, don't they? When they get to big money, you just pay them.
The elite fighters get good, but you're right.
If you're good, you get paid, don't you? If you're shite and you can't fight, you'll be sweeping gym for minimum wage, won't you?
Pretty much so, buddy. Yeah.
It's pretty simple, isn't it, really?
Yeah, right, but yeah, so right. Michaela Mayer.
Oh, sorry, Michaela Mayer.
Michaela Mayer and Natasha Jonas. I'm going to reveal something on Porky's Corner as an exclusive now. Yeah.
Well then.
You're gonna think, what an idiot, and you might question this, but I've got a bit of a Michaela Mayer is my crush, mate, in female boxing.
You're weirdo, Julian.
I'm just being honest with you. I just think she's great. I think she's a brilliant ambassador. I love how she speaks and carries herself. I think she looks fab. Michaela Mayer for me is probably my fit. Max always gives me a hard time about.
I thought it were April Hunter you liked.
I don't even know who April Hunter is. I don't know who she is.
She trains at Peter Fury's gym, the blonde-haired bird.
Genuinely don't. Oh well, sorry, Peter. I'm being rude. I don't know who she is, mate. Yeah, I'm professional, as you know, but I've got a thing for Michaela Mayer, so they're a bit childish, but we're all men, aren't we? Ultimately.
Oh, you haven't told Anna that, I think Julian.
Oh, I have. She's not bothered, mate. Anna's she's broad-minded. Yeah, we should be like, you're sleeping on your own tonight. But no, honestly, it's joking aside, she's not big enough for Natasha Jonas, is she? I mean, it wasn't that long ago. What did she fight? Boom Gardner at? What weight was that? I know the weight.
Super feather, is it? Super feather or something like that? Or
she boxed at super feather, and then she jumped up a couple of weights in her last fight, and she didn't even look big enough then, did she? She didn't look big enough or strong enough. I know Natasha jumped up herself. You can't. It's hard to keep up with who weighed what at what point in the career. But Natasha Jonas is too big for Michaela Mayer.
You think?
She's too big for. Yeah.
Do you think that Natasha Jonas and Terry Harper will ever fight again?
I hope not.
Yeah.
I hope not. I've said this before, and it's my cruel streak. I like Terry Harper. I like Steffi Bull. The Trek Natasha Jonas like shit did Sky, and Steffi and Eddie and maybe Terry Harper didn't have a say in that, but they shut her out in the cold. The way they treated her, the way Joe was treated, like Sigmund Freud said, you forget names, dates, times, and places, but you never forget how someone makes you feel. And I would hang on to that, and I would not. This is just me, because I hold a grudge. I would never give him that opportunity. She's got nothing that Natasha Jonas wants. And if she does end up fighting Michaela Mayer, whereas I think it's not a great fight weight-wise, it's two big names, two very, very credible, very charming, endearing, talented, hardworking female boxers, and I'd lean towards that fight more than I would Terry Harper. And Terry Harper's a sweet girl, but I said to you when I talked about the fight at the weekend, the last place she wants to be is in a ring. She's become so timid. She was timid before, but since that loss to Boone Gardner, it's like Johnny Nelson all over again when he fought Carlos Delaney. It's the don't hit me punches. She doesn't want to be in there. She's running around the ring and not engaging. And it'd make for a stinky fight as well, wouldn't it? If Natasha Jonas was trying to hunt her down for 10 rounds. It's like she hasn't got anything that Natasha Jonas needs right now. She just hasn't. Natasha Jonas is a role model, a strong female role model. And she's had a fabulous career. She's a mother, and she's got so many options that now she can go down for good money. And that's what she needs to do. But I'd be a little bit spiteful. I wouldn't be giving. I mean, Terry Harper, bless her, it was such a dreadful performance at the weekend. It'd be a hard match to make as well, wouldn't it? It wouldn't be a competitive match. One of them's gone on from strength to strength to strength, and one of them seemingly has gone backwards and has lost what little confidence she had has completely gone. So that's a poor match, and I wouldn't do it for spite. And that's not me trying to say Terry Harper doesn't deserve a payday. I'm not suggesting that for one moment, but you didn't want to know her. She was frozen out, was Jonas, and go your own route and do your own thing. That's harsh, that, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Because in boxing, what you get, Julian, is people fall out and they take things to heart. Now, I'd hate for Natasha and Joe to not have this fight with Terry and Steffi because some beef that Eddie got in middle of it past. Do you know what I mean?
But I'll give you an alternative because, like I said, I continue to say I like Steffi, I like Terry Harper. I'm just saying, you've asked me, I'm saying what I would do. And I said I hold a grudge. And you'll never hear me say, I always have a man in the mirror moment. You'll never hear me say what I've said I would do is the right thing. I'm saying what Julian would do. He asked the question, what would Julian do? And that's what I would do. And maybe that's a little bit mean-spirited. And if it is, I have my weaknesses. I like to think I'm a decent guy, but I have my weaknesses. But I'm going to give you an alternative scenario for that, okay? So Joe was frozen out a couple of years ago, yeah? We agree, 2-3 years, whatever it was. Natasha Jonas was robbed of victory against Terry Harper.
Yeah.
She wanted a rematch, she didn't get the rematch. Now you imagine, right? Natasha Jonas, what, they got paid a lot of money for that fight. She walks away from boxing. She doesn't do what she's done and carry on, and Joe doesn't work with her, and they don't go on to have the great nights they've had. Natasha Jonas, 2-3 years ago, whenever it was, she's disillusioned. She's out in the cold. She walks away from boxing. She's now in a job, in a factory job, having to provide for her daughter. I've got a question for you.
What?
Does Eddie and whoever else was involved in not giving her the rematch, do they give a shit about Natasha Jonas?
No, they don't.
Well, there's your answer.
Well, Liam Cameron with Dennis Shears got a 4-year ban. Did Dennis go around to visit Liam and put a few quid in Tanya's hand every week for some groceries because Liam was boxing? No.
Liam Cameron, right? I don't know much about Liam Cameron. I watched his fight at the weekend, and I have to say, it was really nice to see that kid back in the ring.
Yeah.
It was lovely. I watched it. It was obviously boxing a couple of weights above his natural weight. And it was a hard fight for him, actually. He was struggling after a couple of rounds, and he dug down. And I thought it was quite emotional knowing that kid had just been royally shafted for maybe making a mistake, maybe what, I don't know what the reasons were for the test. And I know what happened. You've told me the story. But what I'm saying is, I just thought, you know, you've a fighter in Conor Benn earning fortunes, and he hasn't faced any kind of retribution. And you got Liam Cameron on a small hall show, on his show at the weekend. I just caught it on YouTube. I watched a bit of the show, and it was just such a nice story, and it was great to see him back in the ring. And if he makes any money, or if he goes on to win another fight or another fight after that, or if he doesn't, if he gets beat and he walks away from boxing, I just thought that was a victory for Liam Cameron at the weekend, just by getting back in that ring. That took some doing. That's a long time.
Well, he's been hard at ring 4.5 years.
Timing was awful, and everything was awful. It wasn't.
He's left
flowing.
Chris, you know. He's left Chris Medley, don't you?
No, I didn't know that, but I just saw him.
He just with Sonny Edwards and Dalton Smith.
I saw those guys. Always with Grant Smith. Yeah, I saw Grant handing up. I didn't see Grant doing the main corner, so I wasn't sure. But
how
anyway,
do you think Chris would feel about that, knowing that was Chris's gym, Steel City Gym, that they tiled and decorated and kitted out, and then he just get it up?
Didn't know that.
Yeah, it's a true story.
You're South Yorkshire. You know the stuff that goes on in South Yorkshire, and like me, I know the stuff that goes on around here. But I didn't know that. But I just thought, from a personal point of view, to see a kid who'd been shafted, not backed, slapped with a 4-year ban. I mean, what had he done? Killed somebody? Wow, this wasn't a performance enhancing drug, was it? This was a recreational drug, and he got 4 years.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about an imbalance of justice. That was as bad as it gets. So I really enjoyed watching the Liam Cameron fight, because I could tell him it was a hard fight. He was exhausted after a round and a half. They both looked like they were in treacle. And it was like a personal victory for a young kid.
Well, he's obviously gone from middleweight to cruiserweight. He's still got to knock the weight off, hasn't he, now?
I don't think it matters what happens going forward. I don't think realistically he's not a legitimate title threat.
He's not going to win a belt, is he? At that pace, is he?
It wasn't really. Was he a legitimate, real elite domestic level fighter anyway?
Well, he was Commonwealth champion and IBF number 11.
I don't.
At middleweight at
Russell,
one point.
Russell. Come on, you know those rankings are bought, mate. You know how it works.
Oh yeah, cool. But that's what I'm saying. Personally, I'd have thought he was probably a top 5 in UK at weight.
Well, I hope he gets to string a few victories together.
I do, yeah. He's a nice enough kid, Liam. He's nice.
Yeah, I like human nature stories, and the guy might have made mistakes in his life, but he was in the ring afterwards. I think there was his family there. I don't know who was in the ring afterwards with him. And I just watched it, and the reason I watched it, right, because I turned it over and it said Liam Cameron, and I don't watch it at the level of detail that you do anymore. You know I do. I don't pay too much attention to it. So I heard Liam Cameron, and I just saw this guy with hair tied back and a ponytail and a big beard, and I didn't realise it was him because he looked huge. And I thought, yeah, but that's not the Liam Cameron who Russell's always talking about. And then I twigged, and I'm like, well, this is a South Yorkshire show.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
And then it said something in the second round. The commentator said something about all this time out in the ring, and I twigged. I'm like, yeah, this is Liam Cameron. So I'm going to watch this because you talked about this story.
Yeah.
So, and I just thought it was really nice to see the kid back in the ring. It just takes some, talking about the injustice of the WBA bantamweight belt with the females, and 4 years for a trace of recreational drug on a test. I mean, that, unless I'm missing something, was that literally it? Was that what he got?
Yeah, and it was it was like a 12th of a recreational line. In other words, it weren't a line, it was like somebody giving you, a door key, just putting it on one of your nostrils.
You could have touched some money. You could have put your hand to your mouth.
Yeah, it was that kind of thing. And this was the argument, but obviously he didn't have the poke to go all the way, did he? Do you know what I mean? Kind of thing with it. So, because you can only go so far with so much dough, can't you?
So this is what I'm saying about the 3 ladies, the South Americans and the Turkish girl I've just been talking about, who frozen out from fighting for matchroom WBA bantamweight titles. Who's looking out for Liam Cameron those 4 years? I mean, I'm not saying no one was. I don't know the story, but I'm just saying it's. And when you see these injustices, and these are injustices.
Of course they are, mate. Massive.
Whatever Liam Cameron's done wrong, he hasn't done 4 years worth of wrong, has he?
No. He's never been in trouble in his life.
So there you go. So it's horrific, really, and he's whatever he lost, he's never really going to get back fully, is he?
Didn't even sign on Dole 4.5 years or out. Imagine that. Imagine how tough he's had it.
Well, all I can say is that I never met the kid, but good luck to Liam Cameron.
Yeah, good luck to Liam.
Genuinely wish. I'll watch that kid now. The next show I've seen of
GMB
him.
shows. Izzy Asif shows he's on with Ash next door to
Well, I like his Asif shows. He had that brilliant fight that Reece Mould was on a few months ago. It was
He's
a
all right,
storm.
Izzy. He's a nice kid, yeah.
I like Izzy. I like how he comes across. He comes across as really chatty, and I like the fact that he's an ex-fighter. He's been in the ring. He's been in the gym.
Yeah.
And apparently, a very useful cricketer. It was saying at the weekend.
Yeah. Bowler. I've met Izzy.
Yeah. Said it.
Bowler.
So good luck to Izzy. Good luck to Liam Cameron, and just nice story. Nice story. And shame on the border control once again for a 4-year ban for a minute trace of frigging coke.
Hey?
Is anyone? I mean, it's obscene, isn't it? We said we were going to pick up the mood in part 3, didn't we?
Yeah, it's a nice story, especially for Liam, isn't it?
It's nice. Yeah, it's nice. You just saw it meant something to him just to be back in the ring, because it's a physical, mental, and emotional battle what he's gone through.
I feel for Liam, because when he won ABAs, he was tipped for massive things, and it just don't happen for him, has it?
It's just it happens, doesn't it, in boxing, and then when you are at any kind of stage and you get that crushing 4 years, you get frozen out. It's horrendous, isn't it? I talk about it all the time. You have to be consistent. You have to be fair. You have to be neutral. You have to show just basic standards. You can't have one guy boxing in Florida, whether he's banned or not, earning a fortune and being celebrated as this terrific prize fighter, and getting mobbed at shows when he's failed 2 tests for a masking agent, and then have another kid who's doing a 4-year ban, and the border control would say, well, we haven't heard the course of Conor Benn. But it's an injustice when you've got a kid who doesn't have deep pockets, who doesn't have, obviously, money behind him, who gets a 4-year ban for a trace of a recreational drug. I keep saying the same thing, but where's the consistency? Who's running the border control? Who's making decisions like that? And who is handing out a 4-year ban for something what might be a bit silly and definitely deserves a little bit of a, but who's handing out a 4-year ban for that?
Well,
come on.
UCAD, isn't it?
4 years, UCAD. Come on.
You know what I mean? Disgusting, isn't it?
Obscene. It's just, look, we won't talk about it now, but it's how we talk about Gary Sykes' belt, and we talk about Liam Cameron's 4-year ban from UCAD, which the border control stamped. These are just, and these 3 girls who haven't even had a chance to fight for a WBA bantamweight title. Where's the consistency?
There ain't none, is there?
No level playing field in boxing. None at all.
Next. Okay, then. Bomac. If he's done a month in jail, they've said that's a 2-month sentence. They gave him a 20-month suspended, and they put him on a flight back with Terence Crawford to America. What do you think to that?
It's one of the more bizarre stories of the year, isn't it?
Bizarre. He's got the gun and the magazine in it. 15 in the clip, 1 in the hole.
Weren't they saying that like between a 5 and 10 year sentence mandatory?
In England, it's 5-year foot gun and a pound a bullet in the guidelines for sentencing. That's in the UK alone. That's before you discharge it. So
but the letter of the law states, doesn't it, that ignorance
5-year foot gun, yeah, £1 for each bullet, yeah.
But the letter of the law states the law is a very technical matrix. there's
What's
no
happened is they've stuck a big lawyer in front of him who's given him a load of bollocks about, well, we travel from one airport in America to other one on a weekly basis, and we've got a
absolute didn't
license
know.
for the gun, and we're just used to getting on that many flights. Here's all flights have been on it last 3 years, blah, blah, blah. It's just another flight over water, but it happens to be England, and your gun rules are different to where we go. We're really sorry, but we have got a license, and here's our lawyer, and he's on 100 grand an hour. One of them jobs, wasn't it? The bounce Terence Crawford into court, makes it look even better, doesn't it? To show
Yeah,
that this guy he's training the world's best fighter and he's a model citizen and all that. And they bought it, hadn't they? If that had been Frank Warren, he'd have been doing 10 years now.
I was going to say if that was unlucky Liam Cameron,
Oh my God, he'd be on remand, wouldn't he?
if that were Liam Cameron and he'd brought a gun into the UK by mistake, he'd be doing 50 years, wouldn't he?
What would Peter Fury be doing? He'd be on Papillon job, wouldn't
Yeah.
he?
With his stacks of potatoes making rafts.
John Fury would have
with
been in
Dustin
work,
Hoffman.
though. John Fury would have been in Armley, wouldn't he? On remand now for that gun.
He'd have come out of Armley and it'd be 150, on the hard road, wouldn't it?
Unbelievable.
It's crackers, mate, innit? I'm hoping that if I ever get into any kind of trouble, that I get the same kind of leniency.
What, as Bomac?
Can you imagine if the other way around and you took something to the States you wasn't supposed to?
Hey, we'd be slopping out now with hillbillies, wouldn't we?
Oh, you'd be someone's bitch, mate, wouldn't you?
We'd have Boss Hog there having us on chain gang. Wouldn't we? Taking off, boss, taking off. Okay, then. The middleweight division, or super middleweight, should we say, is Billy Joe Saunders, aka Frosty the Snowman. Is he coming back?
I have a feeling he might. I definitely don't want to see Billy Joe Saunders come back. I'll tell you why. For me, Billy Joe Saunders, let's call it as it is, right? We know that a phenomenally talented fighter, and we know when he was motoring, the very few fighters better to watch than Billy Joe with the things he could do in the ring. Now, the one thing with Billy Joe Saunders is Billy Joe Saunders, when he was world champion, wasn't the most active of fighters, was he?
No.
It was a pretty nondescript reign since he beat Andy Lee. Let's just call a spade, okay? It was a once-a-year brigade. You're beating guys like Martin Murray. It was a pretty empty reign, in my opinion. And then you're clearly not the most dedicated. You're ballooning up between fights. Canelo happened, and what happened with Canelo. And then you've had all this time out the ring. Now, what I don't want to see is a Billy Joe Saunders, who was, like I say, aesthetically a really fabulous fighter to watch. I don't want to see him at light heavyweight or just above, and those razor sharp skills at 70%, and to see him blowing over 10 rounds and hanging on to beat fighters over 10 rounds that would have probably schooled about 7 or 8 years ago in first gear. I don't want to see it. Ultimately, it's what we're saying about Warrington and about other fighters. You don't get better with age. You don't get better after inactivity. And you certainly don't get better when you haven't been living the life and you've been piling and piling and piling weight on. So he might come back. He might beat a couple of kids. But ultimately, when he steps up to a real high level, he'll get beat again because he's just not looked after himself and he's just not had the right fights and the right level of activity. So I don't want to see Billy Joe Saunders back. And I was thinking about this, Russell, about Billy Joe Saunders, but I was also thinking about the usual suspects, the heavyweights. We talk about.
Why is he messing with Billy Joe, Eddie, after everything that has gone on? It's like desperation stakes, isn't it? Having to go back to that.
It might have Shannon Courtney on the undercard. This is where we're at.
What is this? Is it all recycled rubbish now? Where's all these new stars? Where's this Ben Whittaker? Where's this Pat McCormack? Where are they all? I don't see anybody jumping out at me.
Absolutely. And where are these
Joe
fighters?
Joyce and Big Freeze don't jump out at me either. And they're last two Olympians, aren't they, with medals? They're not jumping out at me, Julian.
Exactly. And where's the Felix Cashers of this world? These fighters who were on form, who were looking fantastic, who were knocking people out. Why are these fighters not fighting? Why are we? If we're
Where's
not,
Craig Richards? He's not fighting as well. He's gone missing.
yeah. So why are these fighters fighting, and why are we then talking about bringing people back like Billy Joe when we've got unbeaten kids or talented kids who have got world ranking? Who's pushing their careers?
Well, what I
It's
want to see, do you know that Amzad Shearers who fights for Bricktop?
yeah,
Putting him in William Williams. That's a good fight, that,
that's a
right?
cracking fight. That'll be
That'll
really.
see where he is. Now, if he does Liam Williams, the next step up for him is Billy Joe. But Billy Joe won't want to do middleweight, will he?
No, God, there's not a chance to do
Well,
them
why not?
stones.
When Jimmy Tibbs told me that he could have done 154.
Oh, he definitely has. He's got the frame of a light middleweight. You can see that, but it's the you got to be living the lifestyle for 12 months to get down to that weight when you have put all that weight on. And this is what you're saying, and that's like when I think about the heavyweights. I really mean this. Like, so for example, I know you've not asked me about heavyweights. You've asked me about Billy Joe.
Yeah.
But it's like Deontay Wilder. Every time I switch on Google, Deontay Wilder's name pops up. Yep.
Yeah.
Are we really be talking for the next few years about fighters who don't even fight at all divisions? When are we going to start championing these young kids coming through and start focusing on the Andersons and on the Atumas and on the David Adelaides and then the Fabio Wardsley and whoever, and stop looking at this old guard who are just sat having one fight a year. It's boring now, isn't it? Like I said, will Billy Joe come back? I don't care. I just don't care enough to worry about that. I want to see these young kids coming through. You know, Dennis McCann just had a draw. Get him back out again. Put him in some more tough fights. Who cares he's had a draw? It's not a loss. If it was a loss, it's not the biggest deal in the world. Get all these people boxing regular. Because it's like you just said about Warrington and Lee Wood, we might get a rematch, but guys in the mid-30s who have got miles on the clock, who have got losses on the record, is this the best we can do, Russell, really?
We can do better than that, can't we? I think.
Is it any wonder my son's watching UFC like we've just my two lads are getting up?
You, doesn't it, that Joe's watching UFC?
Oh, it sickens me. I'm glad he's doing something constructive. He's looking after himself. He's at an age, he's filling out now. He's a six-pack I wish I had. And it's gutted me that he's doing UFC, mate. I'll be completely honest. And it guts me that I don't even have to set an alarm clock. I can hear him come down in the middle of the night on Saturday when there's a UFC event.
Can you?
I'm like, what? Yeah, both of them.
Kelsey sat there watching it with him.
If I give Joe a nudge and say, Joe, Wilder and Joshua's on tonight, Joe, he'd go, oh, I'll see him on Snapchat tomorrow, Dad. He just won't give a toss. And it's like boxing proves when you put young kids together, when you put young fighters together, you get some fantastic fights. It proves it. It proves it. And we're missing a trick, aren't we? We're protecting unbeaten records, and we've got the. I know it's so easy to say it, but if you look at Queensbury and you look at Matchroom and Wasserman or whoever or Boxer, yeah. If you look at those guys, and if you just forget the politics, I'm talking about Nirvana. I'm talking about if we lived in a perfect world. Look at the fights that you could make. We could really re-engage people with boxing, couldn't we? We could really forget the politics, forget the nonsense, right? Winner of Dan Aziz and Boazzi, put them in with Anthony Yard, then put them in with Callum Smith. Can you imagine the mouth-watering fights we could get if you could drop the ego, drop the need to have the millions and millions, and just have some fantastic fights at light heavyweight or middleweight or super middleweight? It'd be mouth-watering, this stuff, wouldn't it?
Of course it would, mate. It'd be unbelievable.
You know, Dalton Smith against Adam, and instead of Ben Shalom and Barry McGuigan and Shane McGuigan going, well, we don't need Dalton Smith yet. We're going to fight down the line for world titles. And can you imagine if Chris Finnegan and Minter and Simpson And all those guys in the 70s and 60s had just said, no, we're going to wait down the line till we get world titles. It'll be a bigger fight. It's such a cop out, that, isn't it?
Of course it is, mate.
It's such a cop out. Oh, let's wait down the line, down the line. What does down the line even mean? It means it's
Well,
never
this is
going
this
to happen.
Usyk thing at the moment. They're saying it could be any time up to March 2nd. So I says, well, when people say there's a fight on next year in middle of spring and we're in autumn, that to me ain't announced.
It's nothing. It's not doing anything. It don't mean a thing until they're in the ring. And I just think there's some fantastic fights out there to be made. Just some brilliant. Like I say, if you put Adam Azim in against Dalton Smith, never mind down the line, put them fights in. I put you any money on it, you'd have an absolute unbelievable fight. You'd want to see it again. And let's just say they boxed each other twice, and one proved to be the more dominant fighter. Like, I'll give you an example, yeah? Colin Jones and Kirkland Lang fought each other twice, didn't they, for the British welterweight title?
Jones won them both, didn't he?
Won them both in the 9th round. Brutal fights. Lang was schooling him in both fights, and it was like Colin Jones wore him down. Yeah. Kirkland Lang went on to fight Roberto Duran. Colin Jones went on to fight Milt McCrory, Don Curry. What I'm saying is, just because you meet at domestic level doesn't mean that you're at the end of the world and your career's done. And if you get beat, oh, what am I going to do? I can't recover from this. You can go out there and have a really good career. Look at the career that Anthony Crawler had. He still went on and had a fabulous career, didn't he, after Sykes beat him?
Your guy beat him twice, didn't he? Your guy, Gary Sykes.
Sykes beat him twice. Derry Matthews beat him. He still went on and had a fantastic career.
Well, no, in it though, one of them Sykes and Crawler fights, it were fine margins, wasn't it?
Yeah, Sykes beat him both times, but there were good competitive fights. But you understand what I'm saying? Yeah. It didn't ruin Anthony Crawler's career, did it?
No, did it?
It doesn't stop people from having good careers, and everybody's terrified of the promoters, and the managers are terrified of giving concessions and giving ground to the other promoters. What you said in part one about Eddie, they just want to win at any cost. If they flip a coin, they're going to give you a double-headed coin because they can't be seen to lose. Don't matter if it's for a penny or if it's for 100 grand, they can't be seen to lose. So the managers can't be seen to give ground and concessions. The promoters won't give grounds and concessions and work with the other promoters. And fighters don't lose their unbeaten records, although they're going different directions. The fans lose out, and then what's the result of that? The result of that is Joe McGowan and Kelsey McGowan are watching UFC on a Saturday night. Joe's going to an MMA class because they're no longer interested in boxing, mate. That's dramatic, but it's a slow, slippery slope, mate. So they need to start to work together.
They do. And is Joe enjoying it?
Loving it, mate. He loves the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. In fact, I was talking to Big Richard, or we were messaging a few weeks ago about, might have been a couple of months ago, and I said I'm trying to get him to do a bit of boxing, Richard, and he keeps mentioning MMA. And even Richard, Richard disillusioned with boxing. And Richard
sponsors of MMA guy, I think.
Exactly what Richard said to me. Send him to an MMA gym, Julian. That's what Richard said to me. He says he'll love it. So he might have been going, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 weeks. He's already on about doing interclub challenges and stuff. He's not bad. I'm not just saying his son. He's not bad at all. I've done his hands for years, pads and that, but he's not bad at all. And Richard said, send him to an MMA gym. He's loving it. He's loving the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I've got a bag hung up in the garage. He goes on the bag every single night. He's asking me for pads, various things, and he's loving it, mate. And I know I keep mentioning it. No, I'm not talking about my kids as such, but there's an element of it. It's the winds of change for me. It's like it's 2023, and if we can't retain Kelsey and Joe's interest in boxing, how do we retain? How do we get this younger demographic still thirsty to watch boxing and still thirsty to follow boxing? Is this why we're really moving towards this casual basis? because we're losing that hardcore, aren't we? We're losing the beating heart of boxing, because people like you and I, and people who you talk to who are big boxing fans, they're in the 40s and 50s